In this video, I will be evaluating the Skywalker family's pedigree from the Star Wars movie series. Since it has been confirmed that Senator Palpatine manipulated the midichlorians inside of Shmi's womb to create Anakin, I have made Palpatine the father of Anakin for the purpose of explaining the pedigrees we will see in this video. I will explain the Skywalker pedigree before beginning. In Generation 1, we have Shmi and Palpatine. In Generation 2, we have Anakin, the son of Shmi and Palpatine, and Padme, Anakin's wife. In Generation 3, we have Luke and Leia, who are the fraternal twin offsprings of Padme and Anakin, and Han Solo, who married Leia. Finally, in Generation 4, we have Ben, who is the male offspring of Leia and Han Solo. I will be evaluating the mode of inheritance for the trait of the ability to use the Force. The colored individuals have this trait, while the unaffected individuals have been left uncolored. I have evaluated this pedigree to see if the ability to use the Force could be of X-linked dominant inheritance. From Generation 1 to Generation 2, we can already deny this mode of inheritance because Palpatine can only pass on his Y chromosome to Anakin, so Shmi would have had to have been affected in order for this trait to be passed on to Anakin, but for this mode of inheritance, she would have only been able to pass on a recessive allele to her son. I evaluated this pedigree for an X-linked recessive mode of inheritance, and I was pleasantly surprised by the outcome. If we assume all of the unaffected individuals are heterozygous for this trait, there is a possibility for each affected individual to have been passed on a recessive allele from each of their parents. Therefore, the trait of the ability to use the Force is consistent with an X-linked recessive mode of inheritance. Next, I evaluated the pedigree for an autosomal dominant mode of inheritance. The ability to use the Force is also consistent with this mode of inheritance, which we could all agree is not surprising, as this could have already been assumed from simply watching the movie series. Since all individuals who are unaffected would be homozygous recessive, we can work out that it is possible for all of the affected individuals to be heterozygous for this trait. Now I have evaluated an autosomal recessive mode of inheritance for this pedigree. This trait is consistent for this mode of inheritance because we can assume that every unaffected individual has heterozygous alleles for this trait, which would allow all affected individuals to receive one recessive allele from each parent. For my final pedigree, I evaluated the mode of inheritance for a Y-linked or halandric trait. Although this inheritance is consistent from Generation 1 to Generation 2 because Palpatine passed on his affected Y chromosome to Anakin, this mode of inheritance can be ruled out because Padme and Anakin were able to have fraternal twins, with the female offspring also being affected. We can also see this being impossible by looking at the male offspring of Leia and Han Solo, because Han Solo does not carry the traits on his Y chromosome, but he was able to have an affected son. In conclusion, the Skywalker family pedigree can be evaluated to prove that the ability to use the Force is consistent with X-linked recessive, autosomal dominant, and autosomal recessive modes of inheritance, as well as to show the trait is inconsistent for either an X-linked dominant or a halandric mode of inheritance.